in 25. All right, so this is interesting. I'm actually using Riverside right now, just testing it out, seeing how it works. And there's some things that I'm probably, I've got some questions about, and we'll see how it pans out. But the interface is a little bit different, which is cool. So nothing, nothing new there. You're gonna have to, kind of figure out how to navigate around this little UI here. But overall, I would say it's pretty cool. I think one of the things that I would probably suggest, and maybe I just haven't gotten to it yet, is when you're putting in specific descriptions for like LinkedIn, X, and maybe not YouTube, but more so LinkedIn. There's like a character limit, and it would be helpful to know what that character limit is, or like some sort of notification to let you know that there is like you've hit that limit for the description section. But outside of that, it's not bad. It's not bad. And apparently, it's primarily used for interviews. We're going to be doing a little bit more of those, so just keep an eye out for that. And so just really testing this platform out. But while I'm doing that, I figured why not have some actual content, something I can share with y'all. So that's what we're gonna do this evening. I don't expect any of y'all to be either up or on any, well, some of y'all might be on some of these platforms at this time of night, but yeah, just for me to kind of work some things out while most of y'all still, y'all might be asleep. My demographic, y'all might not be awake. All right. So, so here was what I was thinking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run down a 10-year strategic planning table that's designed from the perspective of a newly appointed C-level executive who is also navigating personal life changes, which would include the possibility, but not the certainty, of family planning. I think there's a lot of us out there like that. That's just a very sophisticated way of saying we are up and up in our careers, we single, and we want to do more than just mingle. Like we ready for the next stage, right? And so I went ahead and I actually threw this into ChatGPT just to see what they were gonna say. Like what does this 10-year plan look like? What does my 2035 or your 2035 could look like? And what could you use? Now, the spice, I would say the sauce to this is this. I created a column for decision making framework that can be used for each year that you're kind of going through this. Now we know, listen, life be life, and so you can't just use one specific strategic decision making framework for the entire year. Maybe you can, but just wanted to see how that looks. So for year one, this is what you end up doing for your professional milestones. You establish strong executive presence and credibility. You build trust with board, senior leaders, direct reports, right? Because you will have those. You then assess and refine the company vision if you have the purview to do that. You may not have, but maybe you might have the ability to do like maybe a product vision, right? So so kind of take some of this with a grain of salt. Right? I just kind of threw it in there, just trying to see what they're saying here. But so far, I think it makes sense. Looking at some strategic priorities, especially for the area that you'd be focusing on. Because remember, you see, level, you could be a CMO, CTO, CIO, CFO, COO. So basically, the CXO, the person who would be the chief of whatever area, department, and that focus in the company, you'd have to tailor this to what you're focusing on. And then identify gaps in the organizational structure and talent. That part now, as you know, I'm almost done with the book that I was mentioning to you guys about. Let me see, what book was it? It's crazy. I'm reading the book, and I can't even remember the name of the book. And it's such a simple name too. Let's see. The name of the book is "A CEO Only Does Three Things." Right? And there's another, there's a probably subtitle to that, but the three things in that book is focusing on the people, the numbers, and the culture. And I'm in the culture piece, oof, man, blowing my mind of how systematic you can be to start to create the culture versus just kind of going off of a, not that people do this, right? Off of a whim of like, I envision this, I want to see this implemented. There is a particular framework that you can use, some methodologies that you can use in order to actively assess, first of all, what is the, if you haven't established one, what is the culture right now? But then also at the same time, using that information to start to figure out, okay, what do we like? What do we want to keep? What is it that really works? What doesn't work, or what is toxic, or what needs to be removed, and how do we kind of bridge the gap between the two? And that's typically like if you haven't done the work of creating, from the ground up, a particular culture. Anyway, so great book. The CEO only does three things, and I think that that's probably going to be one of those books that for me I will continually refer to. But yeah, so going back to what we're going to be focusing on here. So you've got, if you're a CTO, COO, or whatever, you might actually have some say so in the talent that's being hired. Maybe not. This book actually, the premise is that that's the CEO's job. Of course, it's not just going to be one person doing this, but not even suggestion. Part of their framework is that every single person that gets hired, the CEO will be aware of. And you're like, what? How practical is that? They break it down. They break it down how it can be a practical thing, because it's not like you're hiring, hundreds of people at the same time. Somebody's got to interview them now. Are you a part of the interview process? Maybe not the entire process, but anyway, all of that to say that there will always be gaps in the organizational structure, gaps in the talent, and your first year as saying like starting to identify those things, I would suggest identify your gaps first. Now, if this is a particular company that you have already been kind of growing with, it's probably going to be easier to identify those gaps. But if not, then kind of become more self-aware. The book also talks about that as well, becoming aware about your own strengths, weaknesses, kind of not even beyond that, just your own value system, so that when you do make particular decisions, it aligns with what you actually believe in. We talked about that as well. Poor decision making comes from two main sources. One is if it goes against the grain of what you believe in, but if you are not even aware of what you believe in, then that's going to be difficult. But then the other one is making a decision, but not seeing it through, which arguably is worse than the other one. Okay, so this is year one. I like the first step here, the first two, which is like establishing the strong executive presence, establishing your credibility, and then building trust with a few people. You've got the board, you've got senior leaders, so those will kind of be your colleagues, and then you've got direct reports. Then for the personal milestones, this is going to be interesting, y'all. Solidify a relationship with a new romantic partner. Discuss goals and values. Listen, they are saying, listen, if this is the time, then you need to be more intentional. That's what they're saying here. Set personal health and fitness routines to sustain your C-level demands. Hey, first of all, you got to be with somebody who's going to get it. This is not just for executives. This is for people who are also entrepreneurs. You got to be with someone who understands the demand. And if you're with somebody who is on the same level, then it's going to feel and be more aligned. But if not, you're going to have some challenges. Assess personal living situation. Is relocation in the mix? Do you need a bigger space? Now, remember, this is not just talking about romance. This is also talking about family planning, right? Begin thinking about the long-term lifestyle. So this is interesting. This is year one. We're not saying month one, week one, year one. So this is interesting. But the first part where it talks about solidifying the relationship with your new potential romantic partner, where you do a few things. You have to discuss your future goals. You have to discuss your values. You have to be aligned in those things, because if you aren't, at some point, there's going to not just be tension. There's going to be a severe disconnect. There's going to be severe misalignment, and it's not even that one person is right and one person is wrong. It's just that two people are on two different planes, and it's not going to work, and you might try to force it, and it's just, yeah, you don't want to force it. Here's a making frameworks that you should use for this year one, not 2025, but just if you're starting this in your year one. Well, actually, it would be if we're talking about doing this for 2035. It's called the immediate priority slash stakeholder alignment. So you use a stakeholder focused decision matrix like urgency versus impact. I would say that's kind of like the Eisenhower matrix. To prioritize quick wins, you evaluate decisions based on your alignment with core values, both the personal and both the professional or the organizational, and you ask questions like, does this action strengthen my credibility and relationship with stakeholders? That is for the professional. As far as the decision-making framework for the personal, I don't see one here. And I probably would advise against using an urgency versus impact framework for your romantic life. So there's that. What you don't want to do is you don't want to turn your pursuit of romance. This also for those of you that are just coming on. We're talking about the bachelors, bachelorettes, are single folk who are on the trajectory, C-level trajectory, or you might have just started it, but you don't have a family yet, and you're probably considering it. What does that look like? You probably don't want one now, but it's something that you want to consider, think about, so that perhaps in the next 10 years, 2035, you would actually have both fulfillment in your professional career and also in your personal life. So in week one, not week, oh man, in year one, you probably wouldn't want to use, the urgency versus impact framework for that personal milestone, like the quick win. What quick wins are we talking about when it comes to love? Now, hey, I could be wrong, but I don't know. I think you might have to use a different framework. Now, whatever that framework is right now, I'm not really sure. I don't know. My beloved generative AI has not put that in there, so I don't know. But what they did do is they came up with a year two for us, all right? So for year two, what you're gonna do on the professional side, your professional milestone is you're going to launch key strategic initiatives. Cost optimization, revenue growth, product innovation are some examples. You're going to define KPIs. I would even suggest that this might also be year one, depending on what you're doing. So keep that in mind too. Defining KPIs to measure progress and impact. Begin cultivating a personal brand. Honestly, y'all, you probably should be doing that. Listen, this whole time, I can already tell I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of commentary on this table that they created. Creating and cultivating a personal brand, like your speaking engagements and your thought leaderships. If you are in the camp that I'm in, you're already doing that. You're not waiting to be in an executive role to do that. Now, if you haven't been doing that, my suggestion is you don't wait till year one or in this case, year two, to start building your personal brand. Now, perhaps maybe this was the traditional way, the old way, before pre-social media, pre-web 2.0, when, you had to company first, put the company first, and then you start building so that they realize and they understand, okay, this person is invested. And then when they start seeing that you're also doing, branding for yourself, they have no worries. I don't know. That's my conjecture. But in this day and age, you need to put yourself out there now, right? So make sure that you're doing that. So the speaking engagements, thought leadership, and thought leadership is easy nowadays. You just do what I'm doing right now, live stream, or you post on social media. It's very easy to do it. Back in the day, thought leadership was almost exclusively tied to like white papers, where you'd have to go on someone's website and then you'd have to download this long form piece of content that dives deep into a particular topic. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's still valuable, but people now do that online. Well, on social media. You can get the same white paper in a sense, not going through somebody's website, but a lot of people will use it as maybe an email campaign where they split it up. Same content, but they'll split it up over a series of maybe 10 emails or something like that. Or you may get the entire thing in some sort of lead gen like ad where it's like, hey, download this paper. Adobe actually still does this, where they'll have their kind of outlook or trends for the new year or the retrospection of what happened that year. I think it's usually like what's coming up ahead. Adobe does a great job of doing that. There's some other companies that does this as well. They put out a paper every year, annually. Some do it quarterly. So it exists. These things exist, and it's free. You don't charge anybody for a white paper. Just calm down. I know that it's probably some of your best intellectual work, but in the era of where information is free. I mean, we just generated something just now. You want to calm down on thinking that just because you came up with this really great idea that at the onset that it's something that needs to be that it needs behind some sort of paywall. You got to create enough of it, right? And honestly, at some point you'll generate or create an audience, you create a following that they'll start asking you, hey, where can we get more of this? Okay, so for the personal milestones, you want to explore a deeper commitment with the partner. This is going to be very interesting, right? Where they start to see the timeline of how many years it takes until you get to the family part. Because now we're in year 2, and it says explore a deeper commitment with your partner. Discuss timelines, shared financial strategies. Arguably, depending on how ambitious you are, you might already have done that in year 1. Some of y'all do that in month 1. Like, let's be real, because you're getting to the get to. Like, we not here to just Okay. Anyway, let's follow the table. Let me relax a little bit. Travel or shared experiences to strengthen the relationship. Once again, you could do that depending on the means that you have and how creative you are. You can do that in year 1. Clarify personal financial goals and investment strategies. Arguably year 1. Some of this might, for some of y'all, be a little bit too like, this is just a little bit too spaced out. So let's just take this table as somebody who really loves taking their time. There's someone who is not pressed, or not that it's a bad thing, but they aren't as ambitious. They, well, let me back up. To get to this level, you have to have some level of ambition. You are not in certain parts of your career without that type of ambition. So maybe they're not as they don't feel that it is as urgent. Personal branding isn't as urgent. Family planning, we've got some years. Yeah, it's okay. Let's wait till year 2 to travel. I don't know if it's gonna last. If you wait until year 2 to travel, I don't know, y'all. But want to clarify financial goals and investment strategies. I don't know. Maybe arguably that's something that you do wait for after you kind of get to understand and know the person a little bit more. You do maybe perhaps wait till the next year to start diving a little bit deeper into financial goals. But listen, I've been on dates where that's like we cover all of that in like the first. Don't judge me, but we talk about all that stuff. Just shy of like, yo, what's your credit score? Because numbers aren't really that taboo for some of us. It's really not. Listen, it really isn't. And you got to find the right partner too. You got to find the right person where when you talk about those things, it's not like you got to tiptoe around. It's like, yo, let's get, because numbers are just numbers. And I'm not going to. There's this challenge going around now. We listen and we don't judge, right? I'm not going to judge you right immediately based on the numbers because you're not a business. I'm not going to treat you as if you're a business. We're more complex and sophisticated than businesses are, arguably, because we have emotions. Businesses don't. You can only follow the numbers with business until you start looking at the internal work of businesses and start looking at the culture and the people and all of that outside of the numbers. It's a whole another situation because that is technically business too, but I think you understand what I mean. So, let's say, so you meet somebody and their credit score is 530. You But everything else in their life seems like it's going, on the up and up. You got to make a decision. Is that somebody that you could see yourself with? What got them there to begin with? I could tell you that years ago when my score was like, ooh, it was terrible, was because, the young naive me took my credit cards that they give you when you're younger, and that was like the first thing that I used to fund my business. I didn't go to an SBA. I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any loans, like business loans. I just took my personal credit, swipe, 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 just swiping to get things to build a business. And then I couldn't. It didn't sustain itself. Man, you know. So there's reasoning behind these things, and so that's how come you just don't want to immediately judge. So perhaps I don't know. For some of you, you talk about this in the first year, if not the first few months, you start talking about that. But I think it also just depends on where you are as far as the family planning thing is concerned. Because for some of you, you don't even want to think about it as family planning. All right. Okay. Strategic decision-making frameworks here in year two is a data-driven analysis scenario. This is specifically for professional, for your professional track. So for new initiatives, use a scenario-based approach, like a best case scenario, worst case scenario, likely case scenario for your decision making. Weigh trade-offs between short-term gains and long-term positioning, and then consistently, and this one now is they're blending the two. Consistently revisit your personal relationship goals alongside professional demands. I guess that's under the analysis part versus the scenario planning. You could actually put, like worst case scenario, what if this person, that's it, falls into a poor spending habit again? Worst case scenario, what does that mean? What does that look like? And so I guess you can use it for both. That's year two. Year three, begin mentoring. This is professional. Begin mentoring senior managers for succession and delegation. Evaluate expansion or acquisitions if relevant. That sounds so AI generic. Optimize organizational structure based on years 1 and 2 results. Continue building the industry network. I mean, that one, honestly, it just kind of depends on the role that you're in. You could still technically do that, even if like you're the chief technology officer, let's say, or chief informational officer. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about year three. Year three feels very feels feels very vague. Seems very vague here, outside of the mentoring. So now you're pouring into those who could potentially do what you're doing, or work closely with you. Okay, but the whole evaluating the expansion or acquisitions, and it says if relevant, which is true. It's almost as if year three is, at least in the professional space, it's like you gain your, what do they call it, like your sea legs. You've gained your footing. You are more established, and it looks like you're kind of in a maintenance kind of mode. Kind of like see what's happening, and whatever is working, do more of that. Right? Optimizing the structure based on your 1 and 2 results. Okay, man. All right, that's professional. Personal, if leaning toward family planning, so years 1 and 2, probably you haven't been leaning, I guess, per se, but you know, some you're just like, I'm ready. We gotta, we, especially for the female gender. Clock is ticking. Some of y'all is like, the clock is ticking. I can't. We gotta. And it's hard for me to be like, don't let that be the deciding factor. But honestly, first of all, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak on that. Number one, that's a very, especially if you're looking for kids. That's huge. That is a deciding factor. Especially if the option of, I don't know, like freezing eggs or IVF or things like that isn't possible, then or feasible. Yeah. Yeah, it's huge, which can, if you're not careful, impair your decision making skills. Because I don't know if anybody has ever had a time where you needed to relocate and you just needed to find a place. This is happening. You just had to find a place, And by the time you sign the lease, you realize that there are a lot of things that you didn't think about or look at because you, first of all, didn't have a checklist to just help you. That even if you had to make a quick decision, that you can just quickly like benchmark some things against to see like, oh, okay, yep, got that. Oh, it doesn't have that, but I can work with that. Versus just kind of going in cold. Oh man, um, that's my my first apartment in New York experience was that. It was the I did not think about any of this before signing the lease. And they didn't tell me about this either. Of course I'm not gonna tell you about it. They need somebody to come in so that you can actually pay rent. Okay. So from a personal perspective, year three now we're talking. If leaning toward family planning, start researching options and potential timelines or decide to remain flexible. Y'all, I have no idea what they mean by deciding to remain flexible. What does that even mean? What kind of timelines are we talking about? Timelines of marriage? I would assume is probably one of them. Maybe timelines of engagement will probably be another one. But y'all, decide to remain. You and your partner would have to be on the same page talking about flexible. All right. Formalize personal support systems, household help, having some advisors. I'm going to assume that maybe this is kind of now looking at, I don't know, household help is very interesting. Has the family already started? I, what do we need help at? I don't know. Did my partner move in? Advisors. Is like premarital counseling. What is this? Is it, I don't know. It's relationship advisors? This is interesting. Maybe each one gets their separate therapist, or maybe there's a couples therapy. I don't know. This is interesting. Deepen personal hobbies or passions to maintain a life balance. Okay, you should be doing that in year one anyway. But I get it. Maybe they're saying like, in year one, you just have that honeymoon stage. You're just enjoying each other, and so you may even skip over some of the routines that you may do. This is young love. I don't you get older, you know how to have that balance, but skip over some of the routines that you have in order to spend more time with that person, and everything is just great. And now that not that it should wear off, but now that things have started to even out a little bit, you realize that, oh, I actually do have a life, and that life should consist of not just what my partner's interested in, but the things that I pursued, the things that I enjoyed before them. Here it's saying deepen that. Don't lose yourself, brother. Don't lose yourself, sister. Go ahead and deepen that personal interest and the passions so that you don't throw yourself off. Okay, cool. Now it's just funny because it didn't say sustain, it said deepen. I don't know. I think that's more of an AI generation thing. Deepen. Does it have to deepen, or do you just have to maintain? All right. What can you do here for decision making? Opportunity cost analysis. You can use a future back approach. So envision 5 years out, and then you can plan backwards. It's kind of reverse engineering what 2030 would look like, and then see what happens there. Consider personal and family constraints in big strategic expansions. It's very interesting here that the decision making framework now focuses on your personal milestones versus your professional here. Remember, the third year for professional seems very like you're in the you're maintaining, you're just optimizing, and if something major happens like an M&A, you're ready for that. But outside of that, you're copacetic, you're in the pocket, so to speak. So you consider personal family constraints and big strategic expansions. That is very interesting. Now, why are we calling strategic expansions? That feels very businesslike. Personal and family constraints and big strategic expansions. For each major initiative, ask how does this align with our organizational and personal 3 to 5 year vision? Now, I'm a proponent of the vision, the personal visions too. I definitely am a proponent of not just having a vision for your personal life, but also for your with you and your partner before marriage. Like if listen, if some of y'all are, like I said, if you're about that life, these are some of the things that you're not even just doing in year three. If you're serious about this individual, you probably have spent a year Some of y'all, like I said, it depends on how y'all move. Y'all might have even done it sooner than that, but you're looking to maybe even fulfill that power couple persona, that power couple dynamic. So you're just like, okay, we need to make sure that we're both in the same space, vision wise. Like we're aligned. Because if we're not, this is not going to work. Okay, so that's year three. So year one, you're establishing strong executive presence. You're being intentional and it says solidify a relationship. That means that you're not just in between, like you're just like, okay, I'm locking it in. I'm exclusive. This doesn't account for what are they called? EM ethical non ENMs, ethical non-monogamous relationships. Let's just make the assumption that this is monogamous. You're solidifying the relationship with your new romantic partner. I don't put an S at the end of that. For those of you that are thinking about multiple, good luck to you. We're gonna focus on just one career track and one. Now, if you have, let's say something on the side, something that's more entrepreneurial than in this case intrapreneurial, I didn't account for that. I don't want to make this too complicated. So you might have something on the side. That's okay. But just make sure the side piece is a business and not a person. Moving on. Year four, okay, now it looks like year four in your professional is going to start to bump up a little bit as far as activity. Lead larger scale transformations, whether if it's a digital one, cultural one, maybe it's operational, and strengthen external thought leadership. You can do this before year four, by the way, y'all. But I'm assuming that they're like, now that you have begun to optimize things and you can start seeing results, start doing some thought leadership pieces like publishing articles, attend global conferences, things like that. Evaluate your next role or having additional responsibilities within the C suite. So maybe you move unilaterally. I don't know if I've ever seen like a unilateral move where somebody becomes a CMO and then they become like, something else, like a COO. Maybe it happens. Maybe it's possible. Maybe it's more happens more common than I'm aware of. But usually the next role is going to be, if you're at this level, you're probably going to be, let's say, for instance, a CMO for another company. Or if you're a CEO, you're going to do it for another company. And the success that you're able to do in one, you'll do for another. I know I've been getting on their case for the last week or so. Starbucks, Brian Niccol, they're the CEO now. I think that I don't know if he was a CEO, but I know that he worked with Chipotle. I believe it was Chipotle. And they, I guess, had some sort of food poisoning situation, and he was able to apparently successfully handle that entire, you know, brand crisis, and not even just brand crisis. I mean, it was an actual, probably revenue crisis too. Apparently, he was able to handle it very well. So now, having been brought in to Starbucks, I'm assuming that that's probably what they're expecting, again, to kind of help Starbucks out of this. I don't know if it's a revenue ret, but and I don't know if they're going to successfully revive the third place versus maybe creating a different kind of third place. But yeah, you can have a different role, and typically they end up just becoming or doing C-level work, but in another company, especially if they've had success. So they'll poach. Companies are like, "Yo, come over here. We'll pay you more," or they'll entice you with things so that you can, whatever you did there, you'll do. Same thing happened with Steve Jobs. They ousted him the first time, and then they had him come back the second time. So, or should I say, he decided to come back the second time. But Apple was his baby. He wouldn't have just not come back. He come back and save his, and he did. He saved his business. He revived it, and he took it to higher heights. Okay, so that is for year four professionally. Personally, what you want to do is year four, decide on now. They stretching this out. And once again, we're thinking about people who are, they're single, they're in the C-level track, so maybe it takes a little bit longer. But my goodness, year four, it says decide on long-term commitment. Oh my goodness. Depending on who you with, you deciding on engagement and marriage in year four. You got to know who you with. You got to know who you're with. That's all I'm gonna say. No judgment here, because um, this is a reality. This actually this th- this is a reality. Some would argue that you can start thinking about some of this maybe in year two. But here it says decide on long term commitment, engagement, marriage, or maintain the status quo. No rush if uncertain. Year four, reassess your living environment for potential family expansion or lifestyle improvement. I guess this is if y'all are. Now this might be a mixture of, and talk about different values here, right? Are they already cohabiting? If they're not cohabiting, are they thinking about family expansion but they're not living together? I don't know. This is an interesting one. Continue building personal wealth and investments. one thing one thing generative AI will tell you is make sure you look out for your own. It's a deepen personal hobbies in year three, year four, deepen your pockets, your personal pockets. All right. So, oh man. Okay. So here's the thing. The decision making here I'm talking about is risk, benefit, and timing. So you want to apply a risk register for large scale changes because apparently, year four, it looks like there's some things that you're doing in your professional track. So you consider the tolerance for organizational disruption versus the growth potential. For personal decisions, you want to weigh the readiness versus the desire with your partner. Ooh, that's an interesting one. That is interesting. Are you ready? But do you want to pursue the next level or the next phase of your commitment? That's an interesting one. Integrate long-term financial modeling for personal investments alongside your career growth. Okay. Yeah. Some of this, if you're doing this, at that point, you better have marriage in the conversation. Like, don't be playing house with these financial models and all of this, and y'all ain't even now. You know what? And so here, right? So for some of you, you may believe that marriage is not the way to go. You might just say, you know what? I'm just going to be fully committed to this individual. We're going to be long term partners, and so we're going to do all the things. We're just not going to get married. I mean, okay. I mean, you know, what are your values? Make sure that that person's values align with what you're doing. You don't want to be with somebody that is looking for, you know, that marital commitment, and you are thinking of, just a long term or even life term, life partner dynamic that is not in the traditional marital construct. And one day y'all have the conversation and you're like, oh, no, I think we're good as we are. We just need to, continue to build our personal and maybe our collective wealth, and we'll be okay. Nah, you guys have to be on the same page. All right. So this is year four. Yeah, ChatGPT pushing it with year four, but okay. Year five, we're in the middle now. We're in the middle. Professional milestones. Assess the progress on major transformations. So this is the assumption that you've been making waves. The last 5 years, you've been crushing the benchmarks. You've been soaring. You are killing it in your executive level role. You are that guy. You are that gal. You are doing the thing. Assess progress on your major transformation. Pivot or refine the strategy as needed. Expand your executive network through board memberships or advisory roles. Some of this you can even, you know, and I'm coming to realize, got exposed to this. Some of you can be on boards like now, and you're not even in an executive role. I would consider kind of thinking about what that looks like. Okay. Consider advanced leadership training, so executive coaching, global leadership programs. There's a lot of those. So you'd have to do your due diligence of kind of assessing like what are the best the ones that are out there, so that you're not just signing up for any and everything. And everybody's a coach today, in a sense, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing the right the right programs or the most reputable programs. I actually came across someone on LinkedIn who was very similar to the performance psychology performance coach in the TV show Billions, which I think was on Stars. And these people they exist in real life. As a matter of fact, not that I know much about her, but I actually started following her on X. I'll tell you who it is right now. She's a legit doctor. Dr. Julie Gerner, executive performance coach. She's got a doctorate of psych. And compared to Wendy Rhodes of Billions via the Wall Street Journal. I can't make this up. So yeah, people actually exist. These people actually exist out there, and that's what they do. And I'm pretty sure that Dr. Julie is not cheap. But maybe in your year 5, as you have been growing the business, your salary arguably should be growing as well, and you can afford a Dr. Julie, or that might be even something that your company might even I don't know, subsidize, so that as you're growing, they grow and they can see that, right? Now, year 5, if deciding on a family path, I guess they're talking about kids now. Engage in serious planning, timing, resources, the work-life integration. Explore philanthropic, or I guess it's philanthropic, because people say philanthropic, or community involvement aligned with the personal values, and evaluate your personal brand outside of your professional life. So you're managing 3 things now. You got your professional, you've got your personal, and then you still have the family now that's starting to be created. Here, what they're saying is in year 5, create a balanced scorecard. You want to use a balanced scorecard approach across your financial, your customer, your process, and people dimensions. This is for the professional milestones. Apply similarly to the personal goals. So, for instance, for your family related decisions, consider the window of opportunity with respect to your career obligations. This is very interesting. And then continuously monitor alignment between your personal identity and your professional brand. Okay. Now, it seems a little muddy here. So you got this balanced scorecard that is going to be applied to your professional, also your personal goals, right? So we're talking about goals here. But then there's this approach called the window of opportunity with your family related decisions. And I think it's based on what you're doing in your career. Once again, I guess this is the person, they're in year 5, they're expanding, they're making waves in their career, right? They're more deeply invested. So now you have to look at the windows of opportunity in your career for how you're going to start doing some family planning, or executing on some of the family planning. Okay. Okay. That's at the top of the hill. Let's start to land this thing now. So in year 6, you're gonna drive next stage growth, professional now we're talking about. Expand internationally or vertically if relevant. You're gonna explore strategic partnerships, joint ventures, new markets. So now we're in the expansion phase here. It's actually very similar, and I don't know, businesses aren't linear, but I'm gonna assume, as I'm kind of looking at the business life cycle, you've got the startup stage, you've got the growth stage, and then you've got the maturity stage, and then you've got the decline stage, and then there's a renewal, but then there's expansion. There are a few things, there are a few stages here. There's a middle piece that's called the shakeout stage between growth and maturity, where increased competition leads to consolidation in the market with weaker businesses exiting. It's I guess it's the moment of truth stage. It's like, yeah, not now that we've entered into the market, and it's happening right now. And I don't even consider, like, the industry right now with AI, and how that's, we're not even in the shakeout stage. I think we're still in the intro. We're still in the startup stage when it comes to artificial intelligence, quite frankly. And it's not even like it's just a separate. There are some businesses where it's just AI, but it's like it's AI applied to a particular vertical, right? So anyway, yeah, this it seems as if this particular 10-year plan is aligned with the business life cycle, which isn't necessarily ideal because there may be a growth stage, but you might not have been the person who, I mean, ideally you want to be, that was responsible for said growth. Ideally, it would be you, because why else would they put you in that kind of role for growth to happen? But let's just say that you probably didn't take as much. Maybe you had a backseat in a particular part of the growth of the business, right? Or it could be the other way around, where it may seem as if you're making or at least you have more responsibility, but maybe you guys are kind of on the decline. It's like you're doing more, but you're not really growing. I don't know. It seems as if over these 10 years, it's like they're aligning the typical trajectory of a business life cycle with the trajectory of basically your C level kind of life cycle, so to speak. Do C levels only exist in a company for 10 years ideally? I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's look it up. Average tenure of a I didn't even have to finish it. The average CEO tenure has decreased in recent years. In 2023, the average tenure for S&P 500 CEOs was 7.2 years, which is a 34% decrease since 2017. Well, what was it in 2017? Maybe it was 10 years. I don't know what 30% decrease is. And I have a whole MBA and I don't know that. Yes, I suck at numbers. That's okay. That's one of the things I'm working on. Harvard Business Review has a truth about the CEO tenure. And let's take a look at what they're saying here. The leaders on our 2019 list of world's best performing CEOs demonstrate remarkable longevity. How remarkable are we talking about here? Of course, no CEO, even the executives atop our ranking, can excel on all fronts all the time. Of course, to find out whether that's true, when they talk about, like, how do you know if it's the right time for a CEO to step down, the conventional wisdom, at least among directors, holds that performance in a firm's highest office plateaus just after 9 years. So this particular table isn't that far off. Huh. So perhaps the business life cycle and the CEO life cycle aligns. This is interesting. Well, that was cool to look at. Okay, so we're in year 6. You are exploring strategic partnerships, joint ventures, new markets. You're considering writing or co-authoring thought leadership pieces or books. So now remember, thought leadership was happening in year 4, right? When you're strengthening that with publishing articles, you're attending conferences, and now in year 6, you're writing and authoring books. It's almost the same thing. They say here thought leadership pieces, that's like articles. So maybe in year 6, I'm not saying this, I'm saying what I'm trying to interpret from this thing here is that you are more intentional with maybe having more long form or more traditional, perhaps, like in this case, books, pieces that publications. Yeah, I don't know. Do you need to wait 6 years to do that? No, not really. But once again, this is probably somebody who's just taking their time. I got 6 years. Apparently, the average tenure of a CEO is 7, which means it dropped from like 9 to now 7. So, do you really have much? By year 7, you on your way out, apparently. Okay, now when it comes to personal milestones, year 6, if a family is in the picture, adapt to new responsibilities. My goodness, 6 years is a long time. But let's go with the table. So now you got kids. You've got a spouse, you've got kids, and they're saying new responsibilities: childcare, relocating near family, I've had some friends that had to do that. Adjusting personal schedule. If you're not pursuing a family path, you're gonna they love this word deepen personal interests or hobbies or philanthropic passions. Why? Because I'm gonna assume here that if it's not a family path, it's just you and that person, you and your significant other, unless they consider you and your significant other the family. I don't know. Let's put a little pin in that one. Decision making. These look interesting. Scenario testing and agility. You want to revisit your strategic assumptions with updated market data. Okay. Why? Because it looks like you're driving next stage growth, right? In year 6 here. For personal decisions, you're going to use an agile approach. You're going to test small changes. So part-time childcare, philanthropic pilot projects before full commitment. This right here is not for the average person. I'm talking to you who are not average. You are not an average individual. So you will be thinking about things like this. All right. We aren't, now I'm not saying that my audience is above average people, but you're above average. You're in the 1%. I'm talking to you. You who might be considering a family planning scenario. You who is starting your C-level track. You want it all. You want to thrive in your career and you also want to thrive in your personal life. You don't want to sacrifice. So you, ma'am, you, sir, probably thinking about where you are in 2025 and where you want to be in 2035. I'm talking to you. So here what you're going to do is evaluate your brand opportunities for synergy with professional standing. Yeah, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. For those of you that are like, oh my gosh, why would I even do that? Then this is just not you. And that's okay. But there are those of us out there, we're in year 6 and we're going to be thinking like this. Mind you, this is also for people who may not necessarily have a family yet either. So this is interesting because those of you that already have a family, you've already gone through this, you maybe even be exiting, leaving your tenure. This is inconsequential to you. Right? But for those of us that are in this space now, yeah, it's something that we would end up doing. Let's go to year 7. Okay, so we've now kind of reached this next stage growth in professional life. You probably had that same growth for family planning, or you. And I'm doing this because we're going over the hill. So year 5, now we're into year 6, or it's just going to be you and your spouse. So you're choosing not to grow. Okay. And if you choose not to grow, that means that you are not growing outward as far as the numbers, but you're deepening, as they love that word, your hobbies or your philanthropic passions. In other words, you're fulfilling yourself, but you're also now spending this time to help others. That's cool. They're including here to not just be all about self, but to be of service to other people. Cool. Year 7. You're now going to strengthen your leadership pipeline. Ooh. Identify your successor or prepare the team for the next level. This sounds like your tenure is almost up, just like how we were looking at the average life cycle of a CEO right now. Consider board positions in complementary industries for broader influence. The whole sitting on boards thing. I mean, there have been individuals. I'm going to look deeper into it, but having listened to certain podcasts for the last few years, where that's all they do. They just sit on executive boards and they get paid handsomely for. Is that like a gender exclusive phrase? Handsomely? I don't know. They get significant compensation for just sitting and thinking. I remember it might have been like maybe 10 years ago now, where I actually wrote down, I don't have the paper anymore, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around here, that I wanted to, and this is before I understood even the power of board advisories and things like that, but that I wanted to get paid for how I thought. I wanted to be what would be called like the critical thinking soundboard. I had no idea at the time that, no pun intended with the soundboard piece, that people sit on boards. And in essence, that's what they do. But that comes with some experience, right? You have to have business experience, more than just having an MBA degree or multiple grad level degrees. That's right. That's me. Gotta have you gotta have gotta get your hands dirty. You gotta get in the game. You gotta know what it looks and feels like to go through some of those experiences. Unless somehow you just magically know. Somehow you're like a Rick Rubin. That's my guy, Rick Rubin. Say, listen, he's not an artist. He's just like people come to me because I like what I like and I know what I like. Hey, having that level of confidence and but the intuition. He has a level of intuition that is very keen for music. So that's the other thing too. It's a line. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, I digress. You also want to reassess your personal career trajectory. Are you going to stay or are you going to pivot to a new sector? Because your tenure is about to, right? We talked about the average year, the average life, the average tenure for a CEO is in the seventh year. Okay, year seven, personal milestones. So if children are involved, plan for education in stable environment. Hey, you got to plan way before that. I'm sorry, you're not planning for education when in year seven. If year six you started to have kids, you probably start thinking about that in year five, maybe. Depending on the couple, you're not doing that as soon as the babies come out, and you're just like, okay, so now let's think. Maybe you know what? Maybe you are. Maybe this particular table is for those of us who be thinking too far ahead, which is why they have it in the table to begin with. That way you can just slow down and enjoy life. Maybe. I don't know. It says, if not, if you don't have children, consider major life experiences like extended travel. That sounds great. Sabbaticals. That sounds great. Reassess relationship satisfaction and personal growth opportunities. That whole reassess relationship satisfaction, that sounds very on the, let's bring out a chart and let's start to map out, are we still happy? But that's exactly what they're saying. Don't wait till year seven to do that, though. This is you now being in a relationship, right? No kids, but in a relationship for 7 years. Don't wait till year seven to do, because both your CEO and your personal relationship tenure will be up in year seven. All right. So here's the decision making frameworks that they've got for this one: long term visioning. So you're going to use a vision based approach. Where do you see yourself in the organization in 10 plus years? Because you're about to hit the 10-year mark. Beyond 10 years, where do you see yourself? Evaluate the opportunity cost of staying versus pivoting to a new role. Honestly, I would say do the same thing for your personal relationship too, but with that person. I would say, I think at that point, maybe, maybe with a counselor, perhaps. Maybe not. Actually, when I think about it now, I was like, the opportunity cost of staying versus that might be a little sensitive. Hun, let's talk about the opportunity cost of staying versus pivoting to a new relationship. Babe, you might as well just leave now. If that's but the what? The cost of staying versus leaving me? Yeah. You're not in love. You in business. Hey, listen, don't do that with your partner. Even generative AI knows that because it did not say to do that with a personal thing. It says pivoting to a new role, new company, or entrepreneurial venture. It has nothing to do with personal. But it does say here, incorporate partner or family feedback into your major directional changes. Okay, so there's that. Okay, you're right. By the way, I know I'm just talking here, but if anybody is in the chat, holla at me if if you like what you hear, or if you disagree, by all means. Because I'm also testing out the Riverside platform too. So far it's pretty solid. So, but I don't see any activity just yet. Okay, it's all good. Oh, you can actually download a file of the chats. Interesting. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we are in year 8 professionally. Year 8, possibly moved. Okay. Okay. Listen, OpenAI, they know that they collected apparently all of the data because this is possibly moving to a broader executive role. So CEO, if you started as a CFO, CTO, COO. So if you're in the finance, tech, operations, now now that's though if the CEO role is open, or lead or consult on major industry initiatives. That's a big one. All right. So you become a management consultant. You don't have to be a management only but consultant, but that's usually the MBBs, the McKinsey, Bain, and Boston. You just kind of go down that road down there. Explore entrepreneurial avenues, whether it's startup or consulting practice, right? And you're doing that if the organizational context fits. If it doesn't, don't even think about that, because some of you're not going to you're not feeling entrepreneurship, and that's okay. Some of you do both. You entrepreneur for a little bit, and then you pivot back over to, I would call it entrepreneur. You go back to C level. Entrepreneur, entrepreneur. It's kind of like a dance. Kind of like a dancing with it. You going with the flow. I promise you, if I start using these AI tools to start cutting the clips and they take this one, oh my goodness, there would be perhaps, I don't know, but there would be no value in that they just took that piece right there and just cut it out and just published it. All right, professional is done. Now let's look at personal. So some family considerations in year 8. Expanding your family. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, you're right. It depends on how old you are, though. You might not in year 8 be able to expand anything, or focusing on your older children's needs. If you're single or child free, build the lifestyle that aligns with the personal passions. So travel, volunteering, advanced education, and reassess your long term personal financial goals. So I'm going to assume that when they talked about family planning and said you weren't considering family planning, they weren't just talking about kids. I think they're talking about whether or not you're going to have a long-term or life-term partner. So, yeah, okay. Now, what you can do as far as decision frameworks in year 8 is a complex decision grid. So for large shifts like pivoting to a CEO or pivoting to entrepreneurship, so you use multi-criteria decision analysis, weight factors like financial upside. This is kind of like a weighted, not a weighted pros cons list. It is a little bit different. It's a decision matrix. There are some free ones that are out there. If I can find it, I'll share it with you. But it's a decision matrix where you put particular weight on certain criterion, so that whether it's financially, whether it's quality of life, personal fulfillment, market conditions, whatever it is, it's weighted appropriately, and it does all of the calculations for you, so you don't have to worry about the math, and it helps you to make certain decisions. It's cool because you're putting in, you're inputting it. It's not like you're saying help me to make a decision. No, you're actually putting it in yourself. But now, with generative AI, it might even be able to do that for you if you just write it out and say, hey, listen, make a complex decision grid based on these specific criteria and give me some suggested weights. And then you can always tweak the weights. That's actually interesting. Probably might consider doing that, actually. That might be interesting, doing it in here. Okay, another thing that you can do is maintain open dialogue with your partner or your family or your close mentors. It's very interesting that is under the complex decision grids. Because I don't think it's directly, a part of the grid, but I do think that it's helpful that they're saying, listen, as many grids as you might be able to create, nothing's going to beat actually still talking with the people that you love and the people that you trust who can help guide you. Okay, year 9, we're almost done, y'all. Cement professionally. Cement your legacy. My goodness, in 9 years. I guess some people can do it. The business life cycle is just about to be on the decline, so I guess you got to cement it before the business gets put to rest. Of course, it's, if it's a really good business, it's not gonna. If anything, it renews because there are ebbs and flows. There was a time when I thought that the iPhone, I think it was like in 2016, 2017, I thought that that line of business, that product line was going to be destroyed after like I think iPhone 10 or iPhone 11. I was like, there's no other way. There's nothing else. Oh, they've come out with a phone with three camera lenses now, and and now there's integration, but it's a software thing, not a hardware thing. So I kind of thought the hardware would be done, but then they would just kind of be focusing more on their tablets and their wearables. That's what I really thought they were going to be focusing on more, and of course their laptops. But boy, was I wrong. But I just got confused, not confused, but I assumed that because there was a little lull, that or that life cycle seemed to have been in a decline, that oh yeah, it's done. No, there can be a renewal or rejuvenation, and it can pick right back up and go to growth and maturity, and then just kind of. So anyway, because now we're in what, the iPhone 16. It's crazy. So you're going to cement your legacy professionally in the current organization or as an industry leader. That is very interesting. And you're going to do it or as an industry leader because you might have exited in year 7, year 8. But you might be doing your own consulting or something like that. And so starting to cement that legacy. One of the ways that you cement that legacy is by mentoring rising executives outside your direct company. Oh, that's good. That way you can have broader community impact. So you also consider writing another book. I say another here because it says a, but I was like, at this point you already have a book or two in you already that you already did. Consider writing a book, launching a podcast. Some of you are already doing that. Teaching at executive programs. Some of you are already doing that. I know some people who are actually doing that now, and they are killing it. I just want to name drop, but they probably just like, listen, just relax. Don't put my stuff out there. But maybe they need to know that Pierre Quinn is killing it with teaching executive programs and killing the game as a facilitator. I don't even think he's a facilitator. I think he's like an orchestrator now. Listen, maybe they need to know. Maybe they just need to know some of my peoples who are out here that's already doing it at the C-level juncture, and they are cementing their legacy. All right. Personally, now what you want to do is you're going to evaluate your personal readiness for major life changes, such as additional children. So I guess you got to be young. This timetable might be for somebody who's in their 20s. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they're just like, hey, in year 7, think about having kids. It's got to be. It's got to be, because there's no way that those of us that are broaching, I think the word is broaching, 40. Maybe you're in your late 30s. Maybe you're in your mid 40s. You're not in year 9 thinking about. Maybe you are. I don't know. Maybe you have options, and you know. Evaluate personal readiness for major life changes such as additional children, big moves, doubling down on personal freedom and flexibility. Yeah, that. Those of us in a particular age range, that's what we want. To double down on our personal freedom and flexibility. Possibly, there's another one, downsize or upscale. It depends. Depending on your lifestyle or your family size. Okay, that makes sense. And then nurture deeper personal relationships. I would say that would be one that you should do earlier on. Because you definitely, when you get to this age and this stage, you start thinking about, where is everybody? I've been busy building my life. I've been busy building my career, and I miss John. I miss Jackie. How are y'all? And then you find out that, so you probably want to do this as you go along. As a matter of fact, there is, and I think they pivoted, they've rebranded. It's a company called Popl, Popl. They are now focusing on not just being like the digital business card. Now they're focusing more on being the company for networking, being people's like personal CRMs, and also even, I guess, for businesses. And they like listen, they actually rebranded significantly. Popple is doing their thing. Let me show you what it looks like now. Like it's like gold now, so it's like it pops up. It's like Popple. Like it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope. If you freeze the screen there in the replay, you'll actually see my QR code because it popped up there for like 2 seconds, and you'll see the one that I got. But yeah, Popple is cool. Popple is cool. I'm actually looking right now. The nurturing that I probably should have been doing since. Oh wow, yeah. I got some work to do. Anyway, um, so, nurture deeper personal relationships. Now, when it comes to the decision making framework, you can use what's called the legacy and impact framework. Now, of course, this is in a table, so it's not as robust here, but you're going to ask, what legacy do I want to leave behind? That sounds so. When I started asking that, I asked that when I hit 35 because I don't know if it's changed, but the average lifespan, at least for people in the US, was around 70. So I figured if you have that, you have 35. So half that age at 35, I was wondering to myself, I'm now at the point in life where I every day after that my birth date, I actually am thinking up to this point, I'm thinking about who I want to become, and now that I'm going in a sense down the hill, what do I want to leave behind? How do I want to leave behind that impact? I didn't have a midlife crisis, but I definitely had a legacy reflection at that age. And you know what I realized? Man, everybody's journey is different. Because even if I was asking, what do I want to leave behind? I was still in the process of developing. Did I leave some stuff behind in the meantime? Probably. Maybe I did. Maybe some crumbs here and there. But I really do believe in this side of 35. I definitely am closer to, we talked about cementing that legacy and really making significant impact. But you can also ask, how do current decisions shape that legacy? Right. Legacy and impact is not just something that you think about when you get much older. I think it's healthy to think about it sooner, but you want to be careful though with that because things can change. One of my former therapists actually said, because I was telling him that I'm having a hard time just kind of, following what I've set out to do in my planning book. I had actually the physical planning books. I had so much of them that I just had to go to a digital because it's like, where am I going to put all this? So I was like, I have a hard time just even looking at it sometimes because it's just I'm not where I want to be or kind of deviating. And he, in very colorful language, was like, you need to forget your planning book, your planner, and you need to at this point he's much like you already is XYZ impacting your quality of life. And you looked at the different points and the values that I was talking about. I was like, no, it's not. He's like, what are we talking about right now then? Why are we here? But he was basically saying that you've been too rigid. You've been too rigid with your goals and the things that you wanted to hit. And he's like, you need to be flexible just enough. Now, I'm also talking to an older white male that has also retired and has nothing to look. And I love talking to the therapist that listen. You can take it or you can leave it. I've already had a successful business. I'm just here. I just want to give back. It hits differently. When they talk to you, it just hits so much differently. So, I'm talking to this guy and he's like, listen, forget all that. And he did not use the word forget. He said, yeah. Why? Because you're already hitting certain benchmarks. You are now hindering yourself because it's not happening the way that you specifically, envisioned how it would happen, but you're still moving towards the bigger picture that you have. It's just not in the way that you thought it would be. Why? Because life happens. There's some of us, we don't even want to look at some of the goals that we planned for 2025 anymore because of how January started to turn out and how February is turning out. And so you don't even look at it anymore. It's like when you were broke and you didn't even want to look to see how much money you had in your bank account because you could already kind of tell how much it is. Like, why would I even open up? Why would I even want to look at it, sign in and look at it to see how much? No, like you got to face the music. Got to face the music. All right. Face the music, face the goals that you have, and then adjust the goals. You can't do anything unless you look at it so that you can change it. A lot of people stay in poverty because they don't look at it. They don't take a hard look at what is the reality is versus what they hope it is, or versus what they're, in their mind they already know what it is, and so it's like, oh well, so they have this defeatist attitude, like it's just, it's just gonna get lower and lower anyway. So why would I even look at it? Many of us do this in our goals too. So we have a poverty mindset, not financially, but we have one from an ambitious perspective for our personal goals that we have for ourselves. So we're just like, this month is already starting off rough. So, why would I even try? It's just going to get harder. Who said that? Who told you that? You told yourself that. Stop it. Why would you already say that this month, let's say, is already going to be a failure when all you need to do is take a hard look? When I say hard look, it's because it's hard to look at what you said you wanted to do and then come to the reality of where you are, and then you can start asking yourself, now how do I get there? It changes the perspective. It changes the entire narrative, because now you're not self-loathing. You're not, wallowing in this, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. No, 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 no. How do I get there? Do I still even need to get there? Maybe I need to change the goalpost. Maybe I need to bring it a little bit closer and make it a little bit more manageable. I'm just saying, y'all. Okay. For personal decisions, use a value alignment check. Don't lose yourself in this process. So use a values alignment check. How do choices reflect my core values and personal mission? Your personal mission can change. My personal mission has been for the last few years, and it's probably going to be like this maybe until, I don't know, I die. But I want to help people to see themselves through the lens that is cinematic. I usually say through a cinematic lens, so that they, number one, can get excited about their lives again and realize, wow, my life is just like a movie. Yes. Your favorite movie is probably because you can see yourself as the character, the main character, the protagonist in that movie. So I want to help people to see their lives through a cinematic lens so that they can become the heroes of their own stories again. Because you were at one point. When? Probably when you were a kid. When you had that fearless, like, I can do anything. It's, oh, wow. That's so funny. I actually, random story, getting my steps in. This is why I'm still in these clothes. Getting my steps in this evening. And as I'm walking, I'm crossing the street, there's a car that just would not stop. And I don't know. I don't know if I have a death wish, but I play chicken with these cars when I'm a pedestrian. I don't know why. And so I'm walking. The car's not stopping. I'm not stopping. I was like, one of us is going to stop. And it's not going to be. And so he immediately stops. I turn around, I look at him, and I look at the passenger, and I do this. With my hands like, like a parent who's just like trying to pseudo scold their child. I put my hands in like, I literally did. Really? That's what we done? Yeah, I don't know why I decided to. And I know I had a smile on my face, because then he looked at me and was like, I didn't see you. That's so funny. I wasn't angry, but it was really just, I don't know, I wanted to make a parody out of the whole thing, just people actually stopping where it says to stop. But anyway, that actually happened tonight. So what you want to do is you want to have this values alignment check. How do you have, or not really how do you have, but how do your choices reflect your core values and your personal mission, which can change, all right? So maybe you can ask yourself here, what is your personal mission? You should have one. You should have something that drives you to when you are just kind of feeling like, why am I doing this again? You know why. What's your mission? Think about that. Maybe we can do a live stream about that one day, kind of walk through what your personal mission in life is. That might be actually interesting. If I could actually, let's see. If I had to break it down to you, what you probably could do, and this is going to be unorthodox, because right now I'm actually going to see if I can just open up an app right quick, and let's see. I feel like writing. I'm gonna use my Wacom pad. I used to say Wacom for the longest. Use a Wacom pad here. Wacom. Wacom. And let's see. Let's do this. Zoom in a little bit here. If I had to choose now. Hopefully this works, y'all. I haven't used this. Oh my goodness, I haven't used this thing in a minute. Let's see here. Go ahead and share right quick. We're gonna share a screen. Okay. Let's see if this works, y'all. Ooh. Feeling good. Now you know what? And let's change the layout a little bit. First of all, I hate the fact that it has my name down here this entire time. I don't know why. Let's change the layout. Picture and nice. Okay. And I haven't used Affinity in a minute, so we're gonna use this. Okay. So let's talk about the mission. Oh wow. Okay. So I guess because it's split screen, it actually is like I have to write in the middle. So if you had a mercy. Personal, this is not the best, by the way, y'all. A personal mission. What questions could you ask? Actually, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, but it's not. I think I should have used a different tool. We'll do that for next time. If you had a personal mission, what would you ask yourself? Well, first of all, some people would probably suggest to do, and some people actually are dead set against it, like the Ikigai model. So it's like 1, 2, 3. Oh no, it doesn't look like that. Actually, this would be like a convergence. So it's like 3 circles, like 1 here, 2 here, then 3 there, and then it kind of looks like that. And then the first one focuses on your, like, what do you love to do? The second one focuses on what are you good at doing? So I'm going to put here skill. Third one is what can you get paid to do? So we can call this one, I don't know, vocation. And then this one, this is the one where it's what can you do that could, or what does the world need? So I don't want to say mission here because I think all of this is a part of your personal mission, but I'm going to just put here world. So somewhere in the middle here is where you can find something that you're passionate about, something that you are good at doing, something that you get paid for, and something that the world needs. My suggestion is for this one, you don't need skill and you don't need vocation. You don't need to be paid for your personal mission. Hello, somebody. Do you need to be skilled about it? You don't even need to be skillful at it. I'll say it. I'll say it with my chest. You don't need to be skillful when it comes to your personal mission. You just need to make it your personal mission and maybe have other people to help you along the way. Let's put a question mark here. Maybe you do need to be skillful at it. But it has to be something that you're passionate about. And it has to be something that's going to make impact. Okay. So that would create like this kind of, and I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain that there's a version of this where the Venn diagram is like, it explains the different areas. And so different intersections. But yeah, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? And what does the world need? It doesn't even have to be the world. What does your world need? All right? What does your world need? Like, that's the most important part here. It doesn't have to be the entire world, but it's your sphere of influence, okay? Your section, your segment, your little piece of the pie that we call Earth. All right, I'm gonna stop there. That was a little fun. I like that. That was kind of fun. All right, let's put that away. We might need to do more of that, but not tonight. It's getting late. I should be going to sleep. Okay. Next. Let's pull up our table. We're almost done. We're in year 9 here. Balance the desire for stability with the possibility of new adventures. Why? You're in year 9, feeling fine, aging like wine, but you're still aging. You probably need to do some things to reinvigorate, your personal life, and you're cementing your professional life. So that's not going into decline, but that's about to sunset, or maybe you pivot to something else. You got to do something for you as well personally. Like, what are you going to do that's going to fulfill you, make you feel, um, uh, like you come alive again. And one of the things that you can do is, as it says here, nurture deeper personal relationships. The people in your life can actually help you do that versus just going on trips and being this digital nomad, so to speak. If, just like, no, calm down, relax, deepen, sit down for a little bit. Year 10, okay, we're almost done, y'all. Evaluate the next major chapter in your life. Continue in a C-level role, move to the board level. Some of y'all at this point, you probably would have already done that because you're just so ambitious, right? Like you're just next level. Or retire slash semi-retire to pursue some personal ventures. Solidify the transition and the succession plans, because remember, you've already been doing this. This is not something that it should be an afterthought. You should have already been thinking about this. Okay, the succession plans. Who's going to come after you? Please don't make it dramatic like the movie success, the show, the TV show Succession, which was that also on Stars? I think was that HBO. Personal goals or the personal milestones in year 10. Assess your overall life satisfaction. Are you fulfilling the personal goals and relationship? It says here relationships, but I'm going to put your relationship in case you are, in a partnership with somebody. Finalize or marriage. Finalize or update long-term financial and estate planning. Like I said, some of us are built differently, so you probably already did that way before year 10. You probably already have people doing that for you. It's probably already done. Some of you it's already done. All right. Decide without a partner, it's already done. Decide if you want to scale back or shift gears for new personal or professional adventures. Okay. So what we do in year 10? Well, in 2035, it could look like this. Using the decision-making framework here, you'd have the holistic life career review where you conduct a personal audit as you examine personal achievements, your professional accomplishments, and you find a balance between them. I don't know. Do you need to find a balance between them? I don't know. Some of the most successful people, as you start talking to them, they're like, there is no such thing as balance. They're two different camps, right? They're the ones that's like work-life balance. What is that? That doesn't exist. I do what I love and I get paid for it. That's my work and my life. And there's some that separate them. It's like, no, I shut down after I work and then my life begins. So, it depends on your philosophy, but you're going to conduct a personal audit, examine your professional achievements, your personal achievements, your professional accomplishments, and you look at the balance between them. You decide if your current path offers continued growth or if a change is needed. And last but not least, you're going to integrate the partner family aspirations into your final decisions for the next 10 years, 2045. I mean, I could argue if your family comes first for you, which it should, you actually do that and then you kind of integrate the rest versus kind of being like, I'm doing this whole audit and then I'm going to fit my family into, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I think you need to, there's got to be some sort of, I would say maybe a different framework or the same framework, but it doesn't kind of use and then you can integrate your partner or your family aspirations into your final decision. But I get it. At some point, you are still an individual. You still have individual goals, individual needs, and things that you, have done for yourself personally. So maybe it is that you start off with yourself and then you integrate your partner and vice versa. So maybe this is actually kind of wise because you still are your own person. You are an individual. Interesting. But it's not going to be simple. At this point, you're talking about planning for the next 10 years after this, 2045? And now you got a family? And let's say in 10 years, I guess now, like your kids at this point might be, if not going to college, they're probably in college, I would assume at this point. or maybe they're not even in college, right? I mean, the way the world is moving now, college may be something that's obsolete by the time we get to 2035. Well, maybe not obsolete, but a less attractive option for people securing. We're in the content creation phase stage of the digital era, and there's so many ways. There's so many ways of people being able to secure now, secure jobs. But I will say, of course, if you have the traditional path of the lawyer, the doctor, the engineer, like there are things that you're going to have to go through a structured program. And the question is, does it still have to be through an academic institution? Mm, that's between you and yours to decide, beloved. Okay, so a few things. Number one, and think about the immediate priority stakeholder alignment. You're going to ensure that early in your C-level tenure, you're going to build credibility and identify key stakeholder expectations. You're going to use a matrix that considers the urgency versus impact framework to tackle high priority items first, not necessarily for your relationship, like for love, but definitely for your career. You can arguably use that, but not for love per se, but maybe for your intentionality on making sure that you are being intentional, urgency and impact, intentional with the person that you think you want to be with. Maybe. I don't even know what I said in the beginning, but I think I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if you want to use a framework for love like that. But um, I'm starting to maybe kind of change my mind just a little bit. Number two, the data-driven scenario planning decision-making framework. As initiatives roll out, you want to weigh decisions using the scenario planning, best case, worst case, likely case outcomes, and continuously checking alignment with both your organizational goals and your personal constraints. Three, the next decision framework that we looked at was the opportunity cost analysis. When deciding on expansions or acquisitions or even family planning, you're going to consider the time, consider the resources, and consider the personal capacity to even do any of those things. So a future back approach clarifies how current decisions will look 3 to 5 years down the road. So you look at what it looks like 5 years from now, and then you work your way back. Okay. Number four is the risk benefit and timing decision making framework. You use a risk register, like a likelihood versus impact kind of matrix, to evaluate large scale changes. When it comes to personal decisions like engagement or relocation, you're going to look at how those benefit from comparing readiness and desire with a partner. Just because you're ready doesn't mean that you have the desire anymore. And some of you all will fall into the trap of thinking just because, everything is set and you are, now in, let's say, a financially stable position to, I don't know, to wed somebody, do you still want to? It's very key. People don't want to be loved out of duty, out of obligation. Well, I guess it also depends on the culture, honestly. And that's no shade to any culture. I'm just saying that, sometimes it really does depend. But here in the Western, unfortunately, I guess, maybe it's not unfortunate, individualistic culture, it's got to be more than just, it's my duty to love you. Nobody wants to hear that. Not in the ultimative love is blind era that we are living in right now. You can thank Netflix for that. No shade to it, by the way. I mean, listen, here's what it is. Okay, next, the balanced scorecard. That's the fifth one. Periodically assessing your progress across financial, customer, internal processes, learning and growth dimensions, and applying similar metrics, just like you did professionally, in your personal life. So you can think about your financial health, think about your relationships. Of course, the most important one in this case is with your significant other, the one that you consider family planning with, and even your self-improvement. Number six, we looked at the scenario testing / agility framework of decision making. You're going to refine strategies with market feedback. Start small, some pilot programs to test feasibility, and then you're going to adjust personal commitments like childcare. Listen, some of y'all are going to be big in life. I see every single person that I'm talking to right now that you're listening. If you're still listening, you're probably going to do and make significant waves in life because you're going to be thinking about philanthropic projects. You're just going to be that person. But these are the things that you're going to want to adjust incrementally, right? Next, long-term visioning was the next decision-making framework. Regularly step back to envision, what does 10 years from now look in your career and your personal life? Consider pivot points, new industry roles, industrial ventures, or whether or not you should just step back from it all. Remember, year 7 is the average year now, average tenure of a CEO. Now, I don't know if it's the average tenure of just a C-level executive, but for sure it is for a CEO. Now, there are those that are there longer, which is cool. Nothing's wrong with that. But that's just the average tenure. Complex decision grid. So number 8, when facing major transitions, such as the CEO track, entrepreneurship, or new personal commitments, you're going to weigh multiple factors. This is the one that I told you that I actually had a framework for. Let's see if I can find it. Consider financial, market viability, personal fulfillment. It doesn't have to just be professional. It can be personal too. And you can create it in a way where, you can start to help to stratify your complex decisions and just kind of make things a little bit more simpler for you to look at so that you can decide, okay, this is what I'm going to choose or commit to do, and I can see the weight that it has. You also stay transparent with your partners, your mentors, and your stakeholders. No amount of grids that you create is going to remove the fact that you do need to stay in communication with the people who are going to be impacted by the decisions that you're making. Number 9, legacy and impact framework. You're going to ask how each major choice contributes to the legacy that you want to build, and then align your personal values and professional goals, especially in the later years. This will happen every few years. It may not happen every single year. I probably should. But especially when it comes to the legacy and impact piece, you probably want to make sure that your personal values and professional goals align. Why? Because they're going to change. They're going to change. You get older, you evolve, you shift. Your identity also shifts. So we aren't stagnant people. Even if you're not growing, you're shrinking. You're still shifting. Maybe to a lesser version of who you should become, but you're still shifting. So make sure that even if in your lesser self that you become like, oh man, how did I get here? That you start aligning what your personal and professional goals and values are. So, all right. And last but not least, the holistic life career review. So this is where suggested in the 10th year, you do an in-depth evaluation. And at this point, I would say you probably would hire one of the Dr. Julies or individuals who can just help you with this, unless, this is just something that you want to do on your own. But I think at this point, you probably would have the wherewithal to consider having a team or people who's just going to help you with this, especially like if it's with estate planning and stuff like that. You already have. You probably are going to include other people for this kind of work too. I would just say at this point, it'd probably be wise to do that, even if it's a soundboard, so somebody can listen, and then maybe you can invite them to give their honest perspective of what it is that you are sharing with them. But in the 10th year, you do an in-depth evaluation of where you stand and where you want to go. Consider if you prefer to remain in an executive capacity, move to some sort of board level capacity, or even part-time roles, or refocus on your personal endeavors and relationships. I think that you probably do that regardless, the personal endeavors. You should. So few key takeaways here is you want to integrate personal and professional planning together each year. Do your best to synchronize significant career decisions with personal milestones, right? You want to revisit and adapt. The plan is fluid. Remember I told you, my former therapist, he was like, listen, stop being so rigid. Life is fluid. Keep it fluid. That kind of made me dizzy because of the fluid in my head. You want to revise annually based on new insights, relationship developments, market shifts. Make sure that you are a flexible human being. Life is flexible. You stay flexible. Number 3, stay values driven. I think this is super important. Continuously align professional responsibilities with your personal values and your lifestyle preferences. Listen, there's a difference between between values and preferences. Preferences are, I would consider, not all the time, but many of the times things that would be nice to have. I would prefer to do it this way. I don't have to, but it's just what I prefer to do. It'd be nice if. Values is I have to or I will not. Like it is hard line boundaries. And I think too many times relationships can probably, whether it's professional or even personal relationships, get into trouble when somebody starts to conflate what they prefer versus what they value. And you might even prematurely end certain relationships because what you prefer isn't necessarily what you value, but you start to, end things because you're not flexible in your preferences. If your preferences are something that you really are holding on to, think about what is it that's making me hold on adamantly with this preferences, because there's an underlying value that's there that you need to uncover so that you create that as a boundary, so that it's basically a deal breaker for you, whether in work or in life. All right. But keep that in mind. You want to stay values driven, not preferences driven, values driven. And last but not least, you want to balance your ambition with well-being, because there are many of us, we talked about this, as high performers. If we're not careful, we can teeter right over the edge into being the not the overthinker. I mean, we talked about the difference between an overthinker and a high performer, but you become the overachiever. That's what I was trying to look for. You just you do too much, and it's like, hold on, wait a minute. You have a personal life too. Balance. I don't know. I think I'm on the philosophy of where there is work-life balance. I don't know if I too much subscribe to there is no balance between work and life because I love what I do and I get paid for it and I also live and eat it. You can eat and live that philosophy. That's cool. I think I'm more so on this side. Maybe a little bit in the middle-ish, but maybe because I'm not as entrepreneurial before anymore too. I think that's probably like in this season I'm not as like eat, live, breathe, everything that has to do with building something. That's probably it as well. So, where you are in life also it changes your framework of life, your philosophy, your mindset. But in this case, what we're saying here is balance ambition with well-being, because sustaining a C-level career requires proactive health. Oh, yes, it does. Stress management, it most certainly does. And relationship nurturing. You can't do this thing alone. And you don't want the stressors of your executive life to be a burden on the people that love you the most. So, that's it. Year 2035 can look very promising for many of you, especially for those of you that are wondering whether or not you would even have the ability to have both a work and love life as you venture into 2025 and beyond. My take is you most certainly can, but you have to do the proper planning. But here's one thing that I will leave you with. You can't plan for love. There are going to be, just like there are moments in the market that just open up, talking about those windows of opportunity that happen, and like, oh my goodness, this is our time. We need to capitalize on this. I truly believe the same thing happens in your personal life too. So the question is, are you going to be ready? You can have a plan, but you need to be open and flexible enough to when something might actually speed up or change the plan that you have. All right? Keep that in mind. I believe in you. This was not just for you, by the way. This was an exercise for me too, because I'm in your shoes. Now, for those of you that are full-on married and got kids, this is not for you. But it might have been entertaining for you to listen to me for the last 2 hours and to kind of see me kind of work through this and to evaluate and judge the generative output here from OpenAI, which actually wasn't that bad. It was okay. It was okay. Yeah. I might do more of this. I might do more of this kind of evaluative, kind of dialogue as you kind of put something in and, use it as some talking points and then break it down in real time, because that's exactly what we did. I enjoyed it. Even if I was just talking to myself for the last 2 hours. Some people would argue that you just have to love talking if you're just going to talk. and you know that ain't nobody in the chat right, at least right now. Maybe, perhaps, I don't know. But what I do know is that what charges me up is that I know that there's at least one person, at least if not now, later on, that's going to listen to this, that's going to see this, and is going to be inspired. They're going to be enlightened. There's going to be some level of education, pedagogical connection, something that they thought about, but now it's being a little bit more crystallized to help them make the next decision. I love when that happens. And the heart of things, the heart of what I do, it still is education, y'all. It's helping and teaching, helping to connect the dots, helping to create, not just alignment, but enlightenment so that you can make the next best decision. And in this case, when I'm doing these live streams, we're talking about high impact decisions. So hope this was helpful. And Riverside, I think you might have won a new customer. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. This was pretty solid. We'll see what happens on when I actually have another interview, how this works out. But so far, so good. All right, guys. See you in the next one.